Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started in just about a minute. We're going to give people an opportunity to get on board for this webinar this morning, and then we'll jump right in on the conversation of transit safety and security. Thank you for joining us. Okay. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Citizens for Modern Transit, I'd like to welcome you to our conversation today with Metro Transit to discuss safety and security, the secure platform plan, and the new fare payment system in coordination with the gating system. Topics that we know at CMT, riders in the St. Louis region want to hear about. Before we jump in, though, I also want to take a moment to thank CMT's platinum sponsors, including AARP in St. Louis, Bi-State Development, the City of Fairview Heights, Greater St. Louis, Inc., HNTB, and the St. Clair County Transit District. Again, thank you to these and all of our sponsors. We would not be able to provide these updates without their support. So we really appreciate that and thank you. Today, our goal is to provide a forum for riders and the general public to ask questions about the safety initiatives underway and information to help daily riders with their commutes. As the Regional Transit Advocacy Organization, we feel it's really important to have an open, transparent conversation on where we are and what can be expected as installation of this new security system continues. We have questions that we have received online, questions from our Metro monitors and others that we're going to be starting with this morning. But in addition, as a reminder, please make sure you place your questions in the chat box or Q&A, and we will get to them as quickly as possible as we move through this conversation. Our goal is to get as many answered as possible this morning, and that this is an ongoing conversation. So that if there are questions that are asked today that we do not have answers to, we will get that information for you as quickly as possible and post that as a part of our follow-up blog online. So our conversation today, let's take a moment and welcome our panelists who are joining us. Kevin Scott, the Executive Vice President of Security and Public Affairs at Bi-State Development. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Tom Curran, the Executive Vice President of Administration at Bi-State Development. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Kim. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. And Travis Wood, our Senior Program Director at Citizens for Modern Transit. Welcome, Travis, to the party.
Thanks, Kim. Looking forward to the conversation.
So today we're going to start so that everyone who's joining us knows who we are speaking with. We're going to ask our panelists to provide a quick, I'm going to say this, 2-minute intro on who they are and their role within their organizations, what projects they're responsible for, and then we're going to turn to question and answers. So let's start with Kevin this morning. Kevin, if you want to give us a quick update on introduction on who you are and what you're working on at Metro Transit.
Sure. So I have 3 major areas of responsibility for Bi-State Development. So first and foremost, I was recently elevated to the Executive Vice President level, and I am still handling the all-encompassing security program that we have here. So I will continue to do that. I also now have our internal communications and our contracted communications teams working for me and how we disseminate information and engage the region going forward. And lastly, I am the lead person on the secured platform plan. I'm leading a team of engineers internally and externally, and 2 construction companies that we've contracted with. I'm leading them in that project. So very quickly, if you could advance the slide. A lot of what I've been doing since I've been here since 2019 is building out recommendations made by an overall security study that was done in 2 phases. The overall security assessment and plan moving forward relative to Metro Transit was agreed to by the region back in 2020. And what is intriguing is that the secured platform plan that we're going to discuss today has components of it to help fulfill and satisfy some of those recommendations that we all agreed to back in 2020. Next slide. First and foremost, the real-time camera center is the first phase of the secured platform plan and is a complete reconfiguration and upgrade of our closed circuit television technology in support of not only things that we have to watch out for on Metro Transit, but it also better positions us to support the local law enforcement and state and federal as well relative to the overall public safety enhancement of the region. Next slide. This is just an example of a closed circuit television viewpoint that I just wanted to show you. We monitor these cameras 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and we're able to proactively move and position resources where we need them. Next slide. When we talk about the secured platform plan, the secured platform plan not only includes the infrastructure, the fencing and the gating and the closed circuit television. We'll show you some more pictures in just a minute, but it also includes the integration of new fare collection hardware and fare media. That is a major component of the autonomous operation of the gating systems going forward. Next slide. This is a rendering, but it is now a reality of gating systems that are in place at 11 locations along the alignment. These types of gates ensure enhanced security. As a matter of fact, DC Metro released some information this morning that they had to go back and replace their turnstiles that weren't as robust with systems that are similar to what we put in. And they're seeing about an 80 to 85% enhancement and decrease in fare evasion. So we wanted to make sure that from a gating system perspective, we did things correctly. Next slide. Where we are with the secured platform plan relative to the infrastructure is everything in orange has been completed, 11 platforms total. Those are operating under an interim mode of operation, which I know we're going to expound on. We have 28 other locations to include a location that's being expanded by the St. Clair County Transit District at Mid-America Airport. So we have a lot of construction movement, and a little bit later I can talk about where we're actually working right now on the remainder of the system. So I think I'll stop at that point, and I would like to turn it back to you.
Thanks, Kevin, for the introduction and the areas that you are responsible for. So now, Tom, if you'd like to give us an introduction as well and let us know which of the projects you're working on. So when we get to all of these nitty-gritty conversations, we'll know who will be jumping in.
Thank you, Kim. So as Kim had said earlier, I'm Executive Vice President of Administration here at Bi-State. I normally handle things like procurement and IT oversight, but the CEO did task me with leading the fare collection program, which I've been working on for a couple of years. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of what we're doing in the fare collection program, which is essentially replacing all of our validators, ticket vending machines, and bus fare boxes. Next slide, please. So our new Metro Bus and Metrolink validators are being provided by Masabi. And this is the same company that Bi-State was working with for our mobile ticket program for the past few years. And we do have these new Masabi Just Ride validators on all of our Metro buses. Next slide, please. So the system is live, and riders with e-tickets or mobile tickets can scan them by placing their activated mobile tickets in front of the optical scanner. That's the white square in the middle of the validator. And then when smart cards become available later this year, then customers can simply tap to validate just as you would use a credit or a debit card. And there's a colored light and a tone that indicates whether a fare is valid. So next slide, please. Metro's also just released its own Ride On app for our customers, which is now available in the App Store for iPhone and the Play Store for Android. And through this app, our customers can purchase tickets, check their balance of their accounts, and add funds for future purchases. Next slide. And then later this year, our new Metrolink validators from Masabi will be installed in front of all of our Metrolink station gates. The Metrolink validators will have the same interface as the bus validators that you see today. And when valid fare is presented, then the validator will unlock the security gate for our boarding passengers. Next slide. We also have new ticket vending machines coming. They're being produced by a company called Indra. 3 prototype TVMs have been manufactured and reviewed by members of our fare collection team. And actually on Monday, the first article testing will begin at FabCon. That's our manufacturer in California. Representatives from Bi-State will conduct those tests. The photo in this slide is the first prototype TVM. So this is what they'll look like in future. Manufacturing will take place this summer and fall, and then the installation of the new TVMs will begin in winter. And next slide. And then this is the final component of the fare collection program. It's replacement of our bus fare boxes. We've received 4 proposals in response to our RFP. The evaluation committee members have already submitted their scores to procurement, so we're expecting a decision by the Board of Commissioners in September. So on the Metrolink side, the fare collection program is really just a component of the Secure Platform project. So this is a unified effort to upgrade the experience of our Metrolink customers. And Kevin and I have been coordinating for the past year to push these improvements to the finish line. So I know that was super fast, but I hope that gives you a good overview of what's happening, and look forward to answering questions in the Q&A.
Thanks, Tom.
Was that 2 minutes, Kim?
Yep, I timed
Right.
it. You were at 1:58. You're
Great.
right under the wire. Well done. Okay, so now let's turn it to Travis Wood. Travis is an integral part of the CMT team, but he's working on some programs that have application to what we're talking about today. So Travis, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and then we're going to jump right into these questions.
All right, excellent. I will try to go super fast as well. As Kim said, I am the Senior Program Director here at Citizens for Modern Transit. We have a variety of programs that are focused on boosting ridership, as well as highlighting the benefits of transit. I want to focus in on the rider experience and security that we work on here at CMT. So first and foremost, our Metro Monitor program, which I'm going to talk about in a second. Also the webinars like we're doing now as a resource for the community, conversations, tours, community engagement events, rider surveys. So you can see pictures of some of those things that we do. I'm sharing a picture of myself and my family on Metrolink just to kind of reiterate the importance of safety and security, rider experience. I think this is something that is important to us all, and definitely near and dear to myself as well. Our Metro Monitor program is a volunteer-based program. So established in 2012 to focus on the quality and condition of Metrolink stations. It's evolved starting in 2020 with a focus on safety and security. So we collect information on a variety of different topics from our volunteers. So security presence at station, the interactions security is having with riders, nuisance behavior that's being witnessed, fare collection activity, experience with the SPP gates that we're going to talk about, etc. We have a dedicated group of volunteers, and these on-the-ground observations are incredibly important. We compile these monthly, and we share them in a report with Metro Transit Public Safety, identifying action items in those reports. And we also convene this group of volunteers periodically. And so Kevin and his team will, have virtual meetings with us. We'll get questions answered. We'll get updates on security. We'll do tours on occasion as well. And so this is a great program if you're riding occasionally or frequently, that you can participate, share information about what you're experiencing out in transit, and really help improve the system. So I'll just plug the program for the first time now, probably 100 times during the talk today. You can scan the QR code or go to cmt-stl.org, learn more about it, and register there. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, thank you everyone for your comments this morning. So let's jump right in. Part of the impetus of this CMT Candid conversation with commuters was comments that we were getting from our Metro monitors and that we are getting from riders about the gating system. So let's start with Travis to provide some of the feedback from Metro Monitor volunteers that we've collected, and then let's jump into the status of some of these projects from both Kevin and Tom. So Travis, can you talk to us a little bit about what is the feedback that we were seeing on the new gating system, and where we're at with the security updates today?
Sure thing. Well, the first thing to note is, obviously the gates are currently only functioning at 11 of the stations. So we do have somewhat limited data in terms of, those monitors that are frequently going through the gates. But what we've heard is that it is largely, a positive experience passing through the gates, showing fare to the staff working there and boarding the train. But I will say we have had, a significant number of observations where maybe staff wasn't present and they almost missed their train, or they're worried about missing their train in those situations and maybe being confused about what to do if that happens. Additionally, we've had some monitors who've witnessed security personnel that they feel like are letting people in who maybe don't have valid fare, aren't checking it closely. So those are some of the issues that have been raised from our monitors related to the SPP gates. And outside of that, one thing I did want to note is, our monitors consistently report feeling safe on the system. So I think that's a really important thing. They identify whether they see safety or security on their trip, irregardless of whether they feel safe. But one thing that does kind of continually pop up is some of the nuisance behaviors. And I'll highlight smoking as one that, I can tell you a few monitors emailed me right before the call today. What can we do to reduce smoking on the vehicles, on the platforms, et cetera. So that's kind of some of what we're seeing from our monitor volunteers.
Okay. So I think that's a good starting point. So Kevin, let's turn to you first of all. I think Travis touched on it. 11 of the stations are complete with gating right now, and they are staffed by security guards. So what is the estimated completion date for the entire system? And what does that look like from now until full opening?
Yeah, so if you don't mind, I'd like to take a step back just for a second. So what we're talking about when we talk about security guards posted at the gates, you'll hear me commonly referred to as an interim operational mode. I want to make it very clear that that's not a long sustained operational model. That's just in the interim. And here is why. There is significant interest in this project. There was significant support for this project. And we knew from the very beginning that the fare collection component that we were going to have to implement would trail our ability to put the infrastructure in, okay? So if we took a look at the totality of the project, what I felt from a scheduling standpoint, and again, everything was professionally designed by HNTB. The first two packages, so the first 11 platforms were constructed by Millstone Weber. But if you took a look at the schedule, I knew for a fact that the build out of the first 11 platforms would be ahead of the integration of the fare collection system. And so what I wanted to do as the project leader was show a tangible, viable result in a security impact. And we have seen significant security impacts from those gates. So that's why we have the first 11 platforms. So everything's in place. The gating systems are fully locked. They are controlled on our internal access control system. We have the ability from the camera center that I showed you earlier to control those gates if we need to. And I can give you some examples in just a minute. So really the bridge right now in the interim mode is the actual validator at the gate. So that's the legacy validator. It won't talk to the gate. So when you come up and you validate your ticket, currently there has to be a bridge in communication between the validation and the gate. And that's what the security officer portion of this is. So that's how we continue to operate. I think as we have progressed over the last, 60 days, 90 days, we've gotten much better at that dynamic. We've corrected a lot of those issues that we found early on about security officers that vacated the gates, or they weren't paying attention, or maybe they didn't understand the holistic dynamic of what we're trying to accomplish. We really, when we opened the first 4 platforms in Illinois, we really didn't face that as much. But when we began to open the 7 that are currently open through the core of St. Louis, then we started to see those concerns highlighted. We have also the ability from the camera center, we watch those gating entrances every single day to ensure that they're staffed and that we're in compliance with what we need to do. But as soon as we start to integrate the new validators in and the new fare collection system, we will acquiesce, and the gating system will be obviously an autonomous gating system. But what I can assure you of, there are certain locations along the alignment. Central West End is one, Fairview Heights is one. I can identify 3 or 4 others, Forest Park, where you will have a continual staffing in a static location of a security presence. So that's a lot of information. So let me pause there. I could go on and on and on if you'd like, but I'll pause there.
Let me ask some specific questions that came in from riders with regards to what you just talked about. So if a rider approaches a gate and in fact, the security personnel has stepped away, what are the rider's options to make sure that they can efficiently get through the gate and not miss any further connections?
Sure, that's a fantastic question. So at each gate, there's a public assist telephone. It's on a pedestal, and we've upgraded the signing on that phone. So the most prevalent circumstance for a security guard stepping away from the gate is if we have something that guard is being directed to deal with on the platform or on a train pulling in. When that security officer steps away from the gate, they notify the camera center. We call it a code 0, right? It's a fancy term for I need you to take over control of the gate, right? So that is not a long-term sustained process. That is just a temporary process. So if you walk up to the gate and you see that there's no security officer there and you need to get through, if you hit the red button on the public that says telephone, you'll talk directly with the camera center and they'll let you through the gate.
Okay, so another question that was asked about this is when and if a security guard steps away from those gates, because we're hearing from the individuals who may have missed their train and then missed a further connection down the line, potentially Kevin, for a work commute or something else. If in fact, when a person approaches and there's no security guard, maybe they've stepped away for a code 0, or maybe they, need a break. Obviously, we all need breaks throughout our shifts. So is there any thought of opening the gate at those times to allow commuters to continue to flow through until they return to their post?
Yeah, there absolutely is. And that's a further discussion as we analyze some of the comments that we've been getting. We're very open to that change in procedure. I want to try to minimize those opportunities, obviously, to maintain the security enhancement protocols. But because we don't have an autonomous operating system right now, that is a viable option and one that I'm looking into. We've gotten better though at that. At first it was a little arduous. There's no doubt about it. Anything that's new is right, and is a profound change is arduous. But I am open to holding a gate open if we need to, if there's going to be a long absence from a security guard at that gate. I also would like to point out that we don't leave those security guards there at those positions for long periods of time. We have a very proactive rotation process. And so we're not only manning those gates, but we're trying to keep as much security, visibility, and fluidity on the trains as possible through their movements from platform to platform.
Great. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So the other question is with regards to this, and then we're going to jump to a different topic. Though we talked about the first 11 gates, and now they're currently manned by security personnel until the full system is in place. As more and more of these stations come on board with the gating system, what will the protocols look like? Do you have enough security personnel, or how will those be handled as we go through this process till next year?
So part of that overall schedule, when I and my team came up with the interim operational dynamic, was we did not believe that post those 11 original platforms that we would have to worry about that scenario. So right now we have 28 platforms to construct. Okay. Look, this is not just about, a very elementary construction project. This is multiple locations. This is enhanced technological integration. This is the running and the pulling of fiber. So I really do believe by the time that we're prepared to operate a gate, okay, with the latter two phases 3 and 4. So phase 3 is the remaining Missouri stations. Phase 4 is the remaining Illinois stations. I do believe that in concert, as we start the integration with the validation systems, as we start that testing, perhaps at already existing locations, we'll be able to move security components to other locations. But I don't think it's going to be a dynamic where we have all these 28 locations operating at one time. I just don't see that happening because it's such a complex movement.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Great. Yes. Thank you very much for that. Okay. So now we've talked a little bit. I mean, we've talked about it this whole time. This is a coordinated effort here. So Tom, when we talk about this fare system, and we've heard that everything will be up and running by end of January 2026, which is 8 months away. Where are we, Tom? And should we expect the fare payment system to be fully implemented? Will the scanners, the new TVMs, and all of that be rolling out at the same time? Or what should riders be looking for?
So just to give you the lay of the land of the products that we already have in hand, we already have the component pieces for the Metrolink validators on site. So they're here at Metro. There was a slide that was shown earlier, just very quickly, that showed that those will sit in a stainless steel pedestal in front of each gate. So those pedestals are coming next. And as there are completed improvements at the stations, we could begin after the site survey is done to make sure that everything's in place as it should be on the plans to start installing those. So the real issue here is the ticket vending machines. So the ticket vending machines are being manufactured throughout the summer and fall. And depending on how fast they're scheduled in 5 batches that we can complete those, we can start with the implementation of the ticket vending machines at each station. So if, for example, if we had an entirely mobile ticket process and I didn't need a TVM, we would be able to open sooner. But we don't want to tell people that they have to use a mobile app. They're used to using physical products, both the tickets and the smart cards. And so we would like to have those systems in place fully before we lock down the system, because we don't want to basically disadvantage anybody that doesn't use e-ticketing. So we do believe that having the physical tickets and the smart cards are integral to the project's success. And so that's the part that we're trying to speed up. It will be whatever the production schedule is, we're going to try to push it as quickly as possible. But getting those machines built in here is really the hang up more than the validators themselves. Like I said, I've got validators components here, and we have stations that will be finished probably later this fall, and we can start installing those validators sooner. So it's a ticket vending machine itself that's the key to opening the system in total.
Okay, great. So Tom, can you provide us an update? There was a question about, has there been any feedback on the scanners that are already available on the Metro bus system now? What has the rider feedback been so far?
So I did ask the general manager of Metro Bus this question, and so far there have been no official complaints registered with the agency about the validators themselves. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't discussion or certainly comments that are made by the public, but we don't have a record of any yet. And I think that's because the validators are live, but they've basically been in a soft launch phase. So we haven't done it like a real push to say, hey, use your e-ticket or your mobile ticket on the validator. So as we do that in the coming weeks, we would really welcome the input from users and CMT as to their perception of the new validators. The one complaint that we did receive was in regard to the transit app actually not allowing for purchases of additional tickets for a time period of about 20 minutes after somebody had purchased a ticket. So we're going to review that issue with the transit app provider, but we don't have an official record yet of comments about the validators on Metro Bus. So we really want to encourage you to give those comments, everybody in the public, either directly to Metro or through CMT. And of course, we have Metro's customer service department. You can reach them at 982-1406. You can also text them at 669-8576 or by email at customerservice@metrostlouis.org to share your comments on the new system. And I'll put all those contacts in the chat so people can have a look at them. Thank you.
And we actually had several questions about this. And so I want to make sure that we address this today. Last week, we were made aware that the Metro store in downtown St. Louis has closed. And so we want to make sure we had questions from individual riders as well as companies who are purchasing passes in bulk for their employees, which we think is a fantastic idea. And we want to make sure they still have the ability to do that. So can you give us an update on the status of the Metro Ride store and where individuals should go if they're purchasing passes or tickets and they want to make sure that they can keep doing that for themselves or for their employees?
Sure, I'll be happy to jump in. So the decisions relative to the status of the Metro store were financial. So the company is looking at enhanced efficiencies, what has worked well financially, what has not. And I think the long-term perspective, Kim, is that as far as a retail setting, it's probably not conducive to wise financial efficiencies. We are not going to not provide locations where our customers can engage our passenger revenue operations. And so we're looking for other options now for that. And this is really an interim phase that we're in. But in the meantime, if I could, just kind of walk you through some of the ways that we're trying to bridge the gap until we can relocate the passenger fare people. So right now, transit customers, you have several convenient options to purchase ticket or passes, and this includes the group sales that you mentioned, okay? Obviously, ticket vending machines located at all Metrolink stations and transit centers. You could purchase mobile passes on the transit app that Tom just discussed, and or for routine sales or larger group sales, I would urge you to contact the passenger sales team, and I'll be happy to give a phone number just for the recording, 314-982-1400, and it's extension 2551.
And that's in the chat box for people as well.
Okay, and then in addition, you can contact our ADA services team also at 314-982-1510. There's no extension needed for help with reduced fare cards, ADA paratransit cards, and transit access centers. So I think the dynamic here is, Kim, if you remember historically with Metro, when we had been in different locations, especially on the landing, people were able to walk into the lobby and deal directly with passenger revenue there, okay? And that's really the dynamic that we're trying to create. The real estate aspect, the financial impact of the real estate that we maintain right now with the current store, and or the direction that we want to go with that was really a financial decision, and we're working to put a new protocol in place quickly. But this is a bridging opportunity for us as we move to relocate that team.
Okay, great. Thank you. So let's pivot a little bit and talk a little bit about access. So I know there are lots of questions about, have you had conversations with the communities where these stations are located regarding pedestrian access and connectivity issues once the gating is in place? And I know that we have a question in the Q&A. Pedestrians have longer distances to walk, they're further inconvenienced for time. So how are you addressing that as these gating systems come online at each of the stations? Are you working with the local communities, and what does that look like for the riders?
Yeah, so we have done close to 200 community engagements relative to the secure platform plan. But let me give you an example of that will highlight your question. Let's talk about the Civic Center for a moment, okay? So the Civic Center has two gating arrays, one that is adjacent to the bus turnaround in the lobby of Civic Center, and the other is on the other side that leads to the Greyhound Depot there. What our overall effort is relative to the gating system is a security upgrade, okay? So we're creating these security zones. So at Civic Center, in order to enter that gate, especially on the far side, you will have to have a transit fare, okay? If you're parking in those parking lots over there to go to the Blues game, you will have to walk up to the corner and walk around to Enterprise Center. Creating a massive pass-through walkway across those tracks is number one, it's a safety concern, but number two, it greatly diminishes the overall security impact of what we're putting in place. And as well as I do, over the years, we've struggled relative to the security incidents at Civic Center, okay? And that's one of the locations that we're currently seeing vast improvements. So, that is really the one that comes to mind thus far. We did close a secondary entrance at Washington Park. We did meet with the Washington Park Board and the Washington Park Mayor. And the reason why we did that is because that second entrance led into a vast vacant lots, okay, that really presented security concerns for us. It really became, and what we saw there over the years is it really became an escape route. Somebody would come up on the platform and try to commit a robbery or do something, and then they're gone right off of that location. So the diversion for individuals, it's really not that far to traverse. So that's the concept. Outside of each gating array, if a location has multiple gating arrays, there is TVM or there's ticket vending machines available for them to work. But that's
Okay.
really the concept. And we want to see, yes, we are integrating new fare collection components as we move this process forward. But this is an enhanced security opportunity. And what the gating systems really do for us is it aligns us with the ability to control things that may start off of our property, active events that start off of our property. I mean, we've been working together for a long time. How many times have we seen this happen, right? And things traverse onto our property and then they play out, right? That's really what we're trying to control. This is a security upgrade, and we're trying to create as much of a safe environment for our riders, both dependent, discretionary. Everybody wants to be safe. And this conversation relative to overall gating systems on MetroLink has been a favorable conversation for a long period of time. I'm not suggesting that there's not a recultivation or an adjustment period that we'll go through. But at the end of the day, when this project is completed in totality and we have the fare integration part of it, and we're able to free up security and we're able to operate more autonomously, I think it's going to have a major impact on the light rail system itself, including the other modes. If you want to talk about all the enhancements to closed circuit television that we've made. And also that includes, Kim, that includes the ability now to live feed into all of our buses and trains from our camera center.
So I do want to talk about that, but I want to finish up on this topic first, if we can. So we had one, major blues fan. So the question about Civic Center is there any thought to opening it up when you have large scale events so that there is better access through that station only at those large scale event times?
Yeah, so we would follow the same protocols at Civic Center that we're going to follow at Stadium. Now, Stadium doesn't have that pass-through dynamic, but it has a large census, a large load. And I think that's what we're looking at. And we did see some of that when the Blues were in the first round of the playoffs this year. We did open those gates and manually check tickets to accommodate enhanced loads on MetroLink. And so that is something that we will not acquiesce from. We'll continue to do that.
Okay, I think that was one of the big questions. Another one is, and this is very specific, but this comes from one of our writers, Kevin, and I just want to bring this up. You know, when we look at the Central West End station and the fencing, there's been reports that the fencing actually blocks the view of oncoming trains when you're on the platform. Is there thoughts on making it easier for riders to know when to cross as they walk towards the platform? Or because we've heard it from a couple riders that there seems to be some sight impairments.
So this is the first I'm hearing about that, but certainly the design of the Central West End station was, it was a professional design relative to how we accommodate and the specifications for our overall sight distances, not only for pedestrians, but also our train operators. But once this call is over, I will ask our safety team to do some reevaluation of that location and see what we need to do. If there is indeed a problem there, I'll make sure that I'm
And
on top of that.
we have some images that were sent to us, Kevin, that we will send you on that as well.
Very good.
Perfect. Okay, so let's couple of questions on SPP and the fare system, and I think this goes to both you, Kevin and Tom. 11 stations have had the gating system in for some time. Are you seeing an increase in ridership, which was one of the goals of this program, as well as fare revenue now that those are open at those 11 stations? Or can someone talk to, this was a goal when this program was adopted by Metro, increase ridership, increase fare revenue, increase safety and security. Where are we on those metrics halfway through installation?
So I'd like to start out, and then obviously I'll pause, but if you don't mind. So over the first quarter of this year, ridership in MetroLink increased around 200,000 riders. Okay. What I'd also like to point out is that in 2023, we get all of our data from our police task force. You know how that works. So what we're seeing now, Kim, is in the latter part of 2023, we were sitting, especially as the census post-COVID continued to rise back, we continued to get ridership. We were sitting at about 14 incidents per 100,000 boardings, which is still far less than 1%. However, what we've seen is since the upgrades to the new camera system, some of the reconfigurations and retrofits at some of these stations, we're seeing a total reduction in incidents. Okay. And so today, for two consecutive reporting quarters, we're sitting at only 7 incidents per 100,000 boardings, and 40% of those incidents are proactive engagements by security or law enforcement, meaning we didn't realize a victim. Okay, we didn't realize a call for service, and if we didn't tell you about it, you wouldn't know. All right, and that's the goal. As the census increases, as we make these modifications, we want to see those levels of incidents per the 100,000 boardings sustained. I also have seen data, and I saw it the other day, so I know that it's valid. But for an example, and I only saw certain Illinois locations, but relative to the TVM usage at Emerson Park, it's up 40%. Relative to Washington Park, it was up just north of 30%. So we're starting to see this trend in the right direction. I think what people really want to see is an end product. And I think they want to see at the end of the day that all the stations, the infrastructure has been in place, and that we have the fare collection system in place so that it operates in an autonomous manner. But we're moving in that direction. But so far, the early signs are encouraging. So I can very comfortably say that the gating systems, the gates themselves, have been through several weather events, both extreme cold and tornadoes and everything else. They have operated optimally. We have not lost connectivity or communication or the ability to control the gates. And I can also say that we are again moving in the right direction. So incidents are down. Ridership over the first 3 months of this year is up, and the gates are working properly, albeit in an interim mode of operation.
Kevin, could I just to follow up on maybe for everyone on the call, what constitutes an incident? And just to kind of piggyback on that, I think one of the things I mentioned before that we continue to hear from our monitors, and it may not technically be considered a safety issue, but for some who are certainly sensitive to, say, smoking on the platform or smoking on the train, or some of the behaviors, nuisance behaviors that people are witnessing can really have a depressing effect on ridership. And so I'm just wondering, if we're seeing those type of incidents, are they going up, are they going down? And is there a plan to treat those any differently once the entire system is implemented?
Yeah, so those are obviously nuisance behaviors or quality of life type behaviors that we continually try to engage. So let me give you an example of some ways that we're working to deal with that. It's going to be, I think, it's going to be much easier once the totality of the system is gated. Right now, we're still a relatively open format. And maybe that makes a difference. Maybe it doesn't. I think it does. However, we have entered into a new contract with our security team, right? Our allied security team. And we have enhanced the hours of security. Now, I don't want to get too deep into the woods about overall deployments, but I also want to appear to be transparent. Okay.
We don't want you to appear to be transparent. We just want you to be transparent.
You want me to be transparent. Okay. That's very good. Thanks for the correction. However, when I took over, when I came into this program, Kim, as you know, there was an RFP out for new security. And the struggle that I had was that they were vacating a security posture that allowed for 7,500 hours a week in security. And the new contract was only written for just north or just south of 4,000 hours a week. So right off the bat and taking over, we lost half of the security team, right? Hours, everything in contract security is hourly per week. Okay. So where we sit, so we made some, what I think are very creative protocols. We put some very creative protocols in place. So right now we're sitting prior to the initiation of the new allied contract in April, we increased to 6,000 hours a week relative to contract security. And we have maintained that through the new contract. And so that is helping us, number one, through the interim mode relative to SPP, but also a long sustained security approach. But I think it's important to point out, and I did see the Metro monitoring report, the latest Metro monitoring report relative to those nuisance behaviors. So I want to stress that all of the SPP gates, obviously, that are at those 11 locations are manned 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So the way we have reconfigured our security staffing is that we have staggered shifts now. And so what we're able to do is free up more security and more train patrols. I'm not trying to give you the impression that we pulled security from the train. We added security relative to the interim mode of SPP operation, but the way we move security along the system, there's zoned areas of responsibility, how we create more engagement on the trains. We're putting different, what I think are very instinctive processes in place to deal with some of these elevated smoking and nuisance behavior issues. I know that it's disturbing, there's no doubt about the quality of ridership, but what I think we do deserve some credit about the mitigation of overall crime and violent occurrences on the system.
Okay.
And Kim, just to
Tom?
jump back for 1
Yeah.
second. So the general
Yeah.
manager of Metrolink had just shared with me that on Metrolink, our year-to-date ridership is up 12%. And just to echo Kevin's earlier comments about ticket sales, I know that passenger revenue had indicated at the Emerson Park Station, looking at March of 24 to March of 25, sales were up 50%. So things are definitely trending in the right direction. Sorry to jump back on that, but I just wanted to add that.
No, and I do have a follow-up question for you, Tom, and it could go both ways, and it goes to the nuisance behavior, but we hear from our monitors, as well as riders on a regular basis, whether they have been checked for a valid fare or not. In the interim, before all systems are updated with what we're working on with the secure platform plan. And so I guess the question is, you're talking about increased coverage of security, Kevin, and reducing nuisance behavior. As a part of that, will there be a continual checking of fares on board? Or is that something that, as these systems come online at each of the stations, that will be eliminated?
Well, we're going to have to always maintain the onboard fare checking. So right now, because I knew you were going to ask this question because I know you well, all right? Relative to onboard fare checking through April of 25, so basically through over the first quarter, we did 1,280 fare checks on board trains. All right. And we have a Helios system that we track our security operations with, and we're able to tabulate their movements, and they are able to enter their fare checks directly into the Helios system. So the simple answer to your question is, although the gating system will be autonomous with a new fare collection system, there's still ability, and hopefully not easy, but there would still be an ability to circumvent at some locations. And so the onboard fare checking will maintain a consistent posture.
Okay. So before we jump to the cameras, the real-time camera center, there's one final question that that has come in, and it's really about, so when you view the secure platform plan, the gating system portion of the secure platform plan, because I know it also includes the real-time camera center, there's been some comments about, is the only goal of that to restrict movement? And so what are your thoughts when you hear comments like that?
Yeah, so of course I come from a security background or a law enforcement background. And when we have, it's not so much the restriction of movement, but it's putting in as much of a, and maybe it is, but we're trying to, from a security standpoint on Metro, put as much of a buffer in place, right, to protect the system itself and to enhance overall security. So whether that's personnel, whether that's infrastructure changes that we're making with the gating system, whether that's technological upgrades that we've done through the, obviously the closed circuit television system, we're trying to put as much of a buffer in place and create as much of a safe environment that we can for people to wait. We want people to feel comfortable. And the long and the short of it is, and you and I've talked about this a lot, but public safety is not just a Metro Transit issue. It is a regional public safety issue. It is a regional dynamic, and we all have to work together. And so our affiliations with our public safety partners out in the community, what we're doing to buffer our system and provide safe environments, that's really the goal. And then obviously, you'll hear me say, although these are, we're integrating a new fare collection system to ensure viable fare compliance, and that's very, very important. The overall goal, without question, of the gating systems is to enhance overall security.
Thank you. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the real-time camera center, but I want to make sure that we're not missing. I know part of this was we had lots of comments about the gating system in MetroLink, but we have a total transit system in St. Louis. So that includes Metro Bus, and we've touched on it a little with the fare readers on the buses, but let's talk about the camera center and how that impacts the total system, including the buses in Colorado and MetroLink. Where
Okay,
are we
and
with the camera center?
Sure, I appreciate that opportunity because the camera center is very important. So I want to just kind of walk you backwards just for a second. So when you talk about a total security structure relative to police and security, relative to infrastructure, everybody always wants to talk about personnel, right? How much uniformed personnel do you have on the system? What is the law enforcement presence on the system? And I'm not diminishing the priority of that by any stretch of the imagination. But if you take a look at things that you can do from a security posture that complements the human beings, law enforcement and security, we refer to that in my world as security force multiplication, okay? If you set aside the human impact and you made a list of those security force multipliers, closed circuit television will be at the top of the list. It gives you a real-time perspective. Now, what was going on before, in part of the study that WSP came out with in phase 1 relative to some of the recommendations they made, our closed circuit television system was we didn't have as many views or as many cameras as we needed. The technology was old analog technology. And although there were live feeds into the public safety dispatch center, there wasn't a direct emphasis on real-time proactive viewing, right? If you were not real-time proactive viewing your cameras, you were diminishing the effect of a closed circuit television system. And so that's what we really tried to fix through the phases of the secure platform plan. So we moved and we relocated our public safety dispatch center to our main facility, and then we built out a real-time viewing consoles adjacent to the public safety dispatching consoles. And what this gives us an opportunity to do is now proactively view those in real time. So where are we now? So all of the old analog technology is being upgraded to new digital technology, and we're doing that not only through the secured platform plan, but we have a project called PACES, and that is an emphasis on overall CCTV reconfiguration. We are repositioning the cameras, so there's more of a security complement in diminished areas where we didn't have that security complement before. And then in addition to that, now we have live stream capability on all MetroLink trains, and we're converting all of those cameras on buses where we have the same live feed technology. So that is a footprint. That closed circuit television upgrade is a footprint that's not just focused on MetroLink. It's focused on the totality of the 3 modes of Metro Transit. One last thing is that we have a portal set up, a law enforcement portal set up, where at any time they can scan a QR code and request video for whatever that they're doing, all right? And a lot of those requests that come in, basically 2,752 requests over a period of time, we've processed through the camera center. And most of that doesn't have anything to do with Metro Transit operations. Look, our Metro buses, Kim, have 360-degree security awareness. So if a bus is driving on an avenue in an adjacent municipality or wherever, and law enforcement is investigating an occurrence, they're looking for suspects, they're looking for vehicles, they will often call us and say, hey, look, did you guys have a bus here at this time? We know that this is one of your routes. A lot of times that we've had significant success in helping and supporting law enforcement. At the end of the day, the major occurrences that we've had, and it's been a while since we've had to deal with this, luckily, but we have 100% clearance of those incidents. And my message will continue to be to the region. If you use Metro Transit, to create peril on the system, or you use it as a mode of transportation to travel to create peril in someone's life, we will support law enforcement throughout all extremes in order to make sure that you're captured. And that is my message. The biggest bang for the buck, in my opinion, relative to the overall security enhancement, will continue to be our closed circuit television capabilities.
Great, thank you. So on that note, Kevin, there was a question that came in, what is the cost of this program to date? And if you want to break it down, but that's a question that's hanging out there.
Well, we've married both projects, so and I can go into, and then Tom can talk a little bit about the overall budget at the initiation of his project. However, $52 million cost assessment that was done was a pre-COVID cost assessment. All right. So as we began to build this system out, we are definitely seeing an increase in costs. One of the things that we're fighting most recently are the tariffs that have been put in place, right? So we're going to have to traverse through that. At the end of the day, I feel very confident that we're going to bring this total project in, at least from the infrastructure side, at around somewhere between 60 and 61 million. So those additional funds over the 52 million, I want to stress, we're not going back and we're not asking anybody for any more money. There are funding opportunities that we've identified that Talby and our leadership team actually identified before the project started, right? That we could go to if we needed extra support post-COVID. And that's what our intention is. I'm very proud of our ability to hold this at that cost. I mean, it could be a lot higher. And so, we've modified some of the areas where we can minimize fencing. Look, there's a lot of areas along our alignment that were originally designed to be fenced that have substantial natural barriers that aren't a concern, right? So we were able to do that. We're able to, once you get certain distances from the platforms, we vacated that welded wire fencing, and we've gone to a black chain link fencing in order to establish no trespass zone. So and that was a substantial cost saving. So I think we're on the right track, but you want me to be transparent, I think we're at 61 million.
And that includes the real-time camera center?
That includes all of it, all the real-time camera center and all of the infrastructure. And then, Tom could obviously speak to the fare collection project.
Sure. So Bi-State received TVM funding approval from our Board of Commissioners for 18 billion. That was back in November of 2023. I expect to spend 12.8 million on the TVMs, and then the remainder of those funds will pay for 11 years of maintenance and support costs. So the first year we're under warranty already, so that'll get us 12 years of support for the TVMs. So we're within our budget there. And then the Mesabi contract that we currently have is for 2.8 million. The Board of Commissioners approved 4 million in total for that project. So we're well within the 4 million approved by the board. But that project budget also included 3 years of expected pass-through fees to Mesabi and maintenance and support. So we are easily within the approved budgets for the Board of Commissioners for the validators and for the TVMs. And then the bus fare boxes are to be determined.
Great. So we talked a lot about some metrics and statistics today. Tom, you touched on ridership numbers. You talked about farebox. Kevin, you've talked about security incidents. A lot of the other transit agencies are doing dashboards when we talk about transparency to talk about where they're at. Is that something that's being considered as you roll out this complete program so that the individual riders as well as stakeholders have an ability to quickly get a glimpse of where we stand in St. Louis with public transit?
Absolutely. We have a dedicated public safety analyst that we use full time on staff. And as we begin to push toward the finish line relative to the secured platform plan, as well as other security mandates that we have, that is one of the priorities, is to put that dashboard online so people can see where we are, and then give them a question, some type of avenue to ask questions relative to that through that same posture.
So if you're a rider now and you have a question or you have feedback on what is happening, besides routing them through CMT, what is the best way for them to get that directly into the hands of Metro personnel?
So relative, is it security or just in general?
the ride, their fare, security?
So, you know, obviously we have a customer service posture here, and I would encourage them to go through customer service. And then customer service would route their questions and comments where they need to go. From a security standpoint, we do not respond. So somebody will respond to them, at least an initial response. And then, and as far as what my role here is, it may take me a little bit to analyze their concern or their comment, but I will always get back, myself or Melissa Webb will always get back with them with some type of feedback.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
And
great.
then
So,
same,
go
Yes.
ahead, Tom, sorry.
I would say the same for fare collection as well. The value in going through customer service as opposed to just calling somebody that you know or sending an individual email is just from a record keeping standpoint. So again, in the chat, we have our customer service at metrostlouis.org and the 2 phone numbers. So I would encourage people to use that so that we keep a record of every comment that's made. Thank you.
Perfect, thanks, Tom. So Travis, if people want to get more involved, can you tell us a little bit how they could do that with the Metro Monitor program or some of our programs that we have before we wrap up today?
and real quick, before we do that, just real quick, we have a posture in place here where we welcome ride-alongs and tours and one-on-one conversations. So we can talk about that in just a minute.
Okay,
Yeah, I'd say to jump on that, I shared information in the chat about our Metro Monitor program. And as I mentioned, part of that is we have done some of those tours, and that is an opportunity available for folks and to have some interaction with Metro Transit, Metro Public Safety. But if you haven't used transit, you're thinking about using transit, we've got programs like our Try and Ride program where you can try it for free. We've got Walking Group, our 10 Toes plus Transit program where you can sign up for walking groups, travel and see a bunch of unique destinations in the region and use transit, learn how to use transit. So I'd encourage you to visit our website. I'll pop that in the chat and look at ways that you can get involved with CMT, get out there and ride transit and experience it for yourself.
great. Okay, so we are just about at time. So what I like to do on every one of these is I think that there's always a final comment that you have that you're holding in your mind that you want to make sure you get across before we wrap today. So Tom, is there one final comment you want our participants of the webinar today to know about the fair or anything else that falls under your responsibilities at Bi-State?
I would say just that I appreciate everybody's support and patience as we go through the actual physical build out of our system in terms of the TVMs and the validators. So you will see, you know, construction this year, particularly in the fall and in the winter. And it's possible that that may be some inconvenience for you during that transition between the old and the new system. So I just ask for everybody's patience, and we appreciate your support of transit.
Great, thank you, Tom. Kevin?
Sure, I would echo those comments. I'm humbled for the opportunities that I've had here. We're all working tirelessly for the betterment of the region. I would like to leave you with one final note relative to construction, ongoing construction with SPP. So right now you will see our contractor in Missouri, Cosney Wagner at North Hanley, Rock Road, Wellston, Umsel South, and Richmond Heights. And those are 3-week outlooks. So you'll see activity over the next 3 weeks there. In Illinois, our contractor Millstone Weber, who was also our contractor on package 1 and package 2. They are actively working and pulling fiber and doing clearing and doing saw cutting at East Riverfront, Belleville, 5th and Missouri, and Fairview Heights. So we are systematically putting the pieces of the puzzle in place for you. So we appreciate your support, and I hope you do take the opportunity to reach out to me directly. I'd love to sit down individually, give you a tour, show you the camera center, have full transparency of what you're hearing on these calls. Really, we are doing. So I appreciate the time.
Great, thank you. Travis?
Yeah, I just encourage everyone to get out and ride the system, give transit a try. What we're hearing from our monitors, what I experience during my commute, what we hear from Kevin and his team, the system is safe. And I want to thank the safety personnel that are out there every day because we really appreciate the work you're doing. We know it's not an easy job, the operators, and big thanks to our Metro monitors who are volunteering their time to provide that on-the-ground feedback. And I would encourage everyone who does use transit, no matter how frequently, to provide your feedback, whether it's the CMT, Metro Transit, whether you want to, place a public comment with the Bi-State Board of Commissioners, whatever it is, let your voice be heard. And I encourage everyone who's in a position to make decisions to take in that feedback and allow that to inform your decisions. And additionally, for everyone on the call, really get out there and experience the system, experience the gates, including all of us who are making decisions or advocating. Let's, experience it as a rider, because the last thing I think we want anything is to be an additional barrier to ridership. So I think if we provide feedback and act on that, we'll be in a good place. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone, for your comments today. And I want to thank our panelists for being here, for joining us for this call, for taking these questions. I really appreciate your transparency and your honesty. I think it's really important as we move forward and we move through this interim period, as Kevin calls it, that we find ways to work together and ensure that people can still ride safely and make their connections. And so I really appreciate all of you joining us today. And I want to thank everyone who sent in questions and comments. I think that really helped with the dialogue, and I appreciate you weighing in, especially our Metro monitors. As we always say, our volunteers are priceless. We may be a small organization, but they help, expand our work tenfold. So thank you to our volunteers, our monitors, and those who are participating. I want to let everyone know that a recording of this will be available later on this afternoon as a resource, and it will be also a podcast in the near future. So if anyone needs this as a resource for your employees, or you want to pass it on to peers or colleagues who might have questions and couldn't have joined us today, it will be available later on this afternoon. We have a lot of events coming up. We hope you'll consider joining us. We're moving into ozone season, something to think about. As part of that, we're doing an education campaign. So we don't want to see any red days this year. So check out noredday.com. Get your questions answered there. That's something we definitely want you to be a part of. But again, we said this yesterday when we opened new benches in Swansea at 2 bus stops. Transit matters. Riders matter. It's personal. And so we need to make sure that we're underscoring the benefits of each ride for everyone in the greater St. Louis area. So thank you very much for supporting public transit, and make it a great day.